Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to listen and participate in discussion about bio-based economy. Is it hype or real business? We have attending straight from Germany, Mikael Carus from Nova-Institut, welcome. Mikael Hannus from Sweden, Stora Enso. And then we have Risto Näsi, Forchem, welcome. And also standing, we're supposed to have Panu Tikka in the official program, but luckily we have Enqvist covering since he was ill today. But we're talking about bio-based economy, which is supposedly something new and posh and hype. But do you recall that Stora Enso has roots till, was it 1267, 1288?
1288.
So you've been in bio-based economy since 1288, 700 years.
Via some transformation rounds, yes.
Okay, so it's not that new, is it?
No, but there is always something new to add on and improve. Innovation doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm, that's true. Today we're talking about bio-based business. Like tall oil, for instance, has been 80 years with you guys, and since you 9 years, or how many years already for Forchem?
Well, for Forchem is a fairly new company, slightly over 10 years, but the tall oil business is over 100 years old, and the first invention and the patent was made in Finland in 1911.
1911,
yeah.
First, okay.
But the industry is old. Some people claim, and the textbooks claim, that if you go and read the Bible, Noah's Ark was sealed with tar pitch. So
okay, so bio-based economy.
Older than my neighboring company.
Be my guest.
Eric, we try not to talk about food for livestock feed, but otherwise, pretty much everything else is bio-based. Or how would you say that?
Yes, that's the big question is how do we define this bio-based economy? If we're discussing is it a new thing or not? I mean, definitely there has been bio-based economy, especially in the Nordic countries, basically more or less forever. We've been living from the forests forever. So it's a matter of definition, and I see that the fiber business is very much bio-based economy and a very good example of profitable bio-based economy. So it's been around for a long time.
Michael, in Brussels, they don't necessarily think that this pulp and paper is that bio-based, I see. What's the... You're mentioning that it's more like chemical industry would be...
Yeah, on the one hand, there's Brussels, but if you look at the worldwide material use, then you'll see that even today, we're using more biomass in industry than crude oil. So if you ask the question, reality or hype, it's very real. And when we're talking about bio-based economy in Brussels, they think more about new innovative applications. And they are mainly coming from the Brussels perspective or the continental perspective from the chemical industry. But there are a lot of links between chemical and wood industry, of course.
So there's sort of like battle between chemical industry and wood industry, or how would you...
I wouldn't say a battle. It depends on how much you understand of it. Of course, it's difficult to squeeze everything from wood-based processing all the way, shift it totally to become identical to chemical industry, and the other way around. I think we should not try to make every single molecule that petrochemical and chemical industry is able to make synthetic via their synthesis and so on from biomass. But what is very real to us is that biomass availability, good quality, even quality, cost competitive biomass availability, that's scarce. And for me and for our company, that drives us towards solutions where we can pick it apart in a good way, selective way, and utilize the components with a very high yield, because if we, in the processing, lose half of it or 80%, because we would like to use a chemical industry concept, then we have lost the competitiveness already from the beginning, or even before we started, if we are losing the valuable biomaterial in processing steps.
I think one important thing to remember here when discussing this what chemicals to make from what, biomass...
Soap, perhaps.
Biomass chemicals by nature have a lot of oxygen in them, whereas the petrochemical industry, the molecules they work with, generally do not. So if we try to make exactly the same thing as the petrochemical industry is doing, we would have to get rid of all this oxygen, and then we lose a lot of yield. So we should be focusing on other applications, and what better place to start than those that are already making money, and expand on that instead of trying to leap into new things always.
This is the thing that I feel a little bit overshadowing everything, that people talk about bioeconomies as if it's something new that isn't here yet, and we have industries that are here, have been here for decades, are surviving, are thriving, but they seem to be forgotten, and the hype is about something new and non-existent. That's fine, we need to do those things, but we seem to forget things that are in place already. And another thing is that our thinking, like that, and our thinking is limited with the concepts we have today. We have, with all due credit, we have the big pulp and paper and forest industries, and we tend to equalize that in Finland. That is the bioeconomy. We have other things as well, but because we have such a mass of trees growing, we have 100 million cubic meters of forest growing every year, and 60 of that is utilized today. So truly we have a raw material base that should be used, but there are other ways than the existing ways. They are the new ways, but we also have very good existing ways, and we should support them and not hurt them in the process when we try to support the growth of new types of biorefining value chains.
Michael.
Yeah, I think it's also important to understand that the chemical industry is not equal to petrochemical industry. Today we have worldwide a share of 10% biomass in the chemical industry, so 10% is anyway bio-based chemical industry already today. And when if I look to Finland or Sweden, I think 100 years ago, the share of biomass in the chemical industry was already higher. It was about 20 or 30% if you're looking for pine chemicals, tar, CTO and so on. What is now new is that there are different new building blocks in the chemical industry which can be easier derived from biomass than from petrochemicals, and they're allowed to produce new kind of chemicals, new kind of polymers and plastics. And of course, not forgetting the old solutions, not at all, but we now are able with new technology to add additional options. And this can come from starch and sugar, or also from wood, of course.
Could you tell a layman, which I am, what else can you do out of CTO, like the pine, the tall oil, than this? The quite popular
traditionally in Finland we know Mäntysuopa, the soap product, and this is a good example.
And during the winter war, the trains were lubricated by pine oil.
So you know all this already?
That I've heard, but the other ones I haven't.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. If you allow me.
Please do.
A couple of things that consumers might know. If you take a kind of Murano paint or a Valtti wood stain, those typically have derivatives of a tall oil, mäntyöljy, to make the alkyd coating. If you use detergents, as we mentioned, if you use a paint or adhesives, tackifiers, if you have a label on your whatever medicine bottle or a bottle of whatever, the labels might have the tackifying glue made out of a pine oil products, because we can all associate that if you have a pihka, that is very sticky, and that kind of things can be made out of it. So those are the examples. Rubber industry is a big example of products made out of a tall oil. And the most exotic ones are, which are manufactured today in the US, but based on tall oil, is the cholesterol reducing agents that we know in the under the market name of Menecol, or even some very
out of pine tree.
Out of pine tree.
Okay.
And recently in Finland, a company developed a fairly advanced product to replace synthetic antibiotics in chicken feed. And that company is Hankia, and they are promoting that as a commercial product to the chicken growers. And those examples show that we have existing businesses in place, and we have a continuous innovation in a very high value added products. And those should not be sacrificed because we think that bioeconomy is the same as bioenergy, and everything seems to be focusing on bioenergy. And that is a dangerous path, because I understand energy is important and bioenergy is important, but it seems to own the whole thing and forget everything else.
What is the debate in Europe, I mean Central Europe, on this issue?
Yeah, the conflict between bioenergy, biofuel on the one hand and bio-based chemicals on the other hand is a big issue in all European countries, not only in Finland and Sweden. And I think the framework is changing. You can say today that Europe is the last place in the world where we have this one-sided subsidies for energy. Obama changed it in US in January. South America and Asia did it before. So if you have now, you see that most of investment in bio-based chemicals going to Malaysia, Thailand, China, Brazil, not to Europe.
So
because we lose, yeah, because we have only support and incentives for fuels and energy and not for chemicals. That is a high risk, not only for investment, but many different studies showed that if you have 1 ton of biomass, maybe sugar or wood, that you can create 5 to 10 times more jobs and turnover by using it in the chemical industry instead of just burning it. So we're losing investment, we're losing jobs, we're losing turnover. When we have a lot of biomass in subsidized energy applications, and for the chemical sector the problem is no incentives and higher biomass prices due to the demand in the energy sector. And this is a risky development, and personally my institute is working hard on new solutions to change the framework.
So if I compare it, in the old days we used to burn wood to get energy, and then we decided that let's make paper and pulp out of it and get some more money.
I think you have to go
a bit further
in different steps.
Yeah.
You used to burn wood to get heat with a very poor heat transfer to rock in your mines. Then it has evolved a number of steps, but I get very often questions about why isn't Stora Enso investing in biofuels development, for example, in Sweden? And there is a simple reason. In Sweden, they have, by policy measures, been able to erase fossil energy from the heating sector almost to 100%. Meaning that there is a lot of energy sector demand on biomass, giving a quite high energy biomass price. So why should we go and try to increase the consumption there of the most expensive energy biomass that we can find in Europe or in world, and make it even more cumbersome to proceed? But now I can see that this is not recognized as a good bioeconomy yield. Now there should be 100% of the traffic fuels and not losing the existing other bioeconomy revenues, including the emerging steps in the chemical industry side. So,
is that possible?
Of course it's possible, but I wouldn't claim that we can do it short term in a sustainable way. Because what Risto mentioned, that, for example, Finnish forest is growing more than what is harvested. The same thing is in Sweden. And definitely in Germany, there has never been so much standing forest volume in Germany as there is now. But there is a perception that you are not allowed to kill those trees, murder those trees, to make bioeconomy products out of them.
We have read asterisks, the Idefix dog.
Yeah. No, but there is a lot of opportunities. And I think energy sector has made some big large-scale conversions, but I don't believe that the next major steps on the chemical side or new material sides will be large-scale bulk things. It will grow from specialized segments and finding new properties, competitive properties of the new materials, the new molecules or chemicals, not addressing very large bulk areas like fuels, for example.
Risto.
This is something I've been thinking, and it's a concern or an observation I have, that currently we have these big companies. I think, I don't know, Stora Enso's turnover is what, 9 billion, 8 billion? It's
11.
11. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Well, billions here and there.
Yeah, but over 10 other big companies, and of course, for rightful reasons, they have a wonderful history, good products. They provide for the society jobs and tax dollars or euros, rightfully so, but they have a lot of power and they defend their own positions, which is fine. But even in a big corporation, and I know because I've been in one, they are driven by these large divisions and large volume and bulk production. It is very hard in a large corporation to have small-scale startups to nourish and flourish and make them real businesses, because the cultures typically don't support that. The cultures support big divisions, and I hope this is changing. That's a way you can make these smaller startups successes. But that's a whole different thinking in the big corporation, that you actually have to allow for these little things that some of them eventually and inevitably will fail. You have to allow for that too. And the startups that will provide for the new bioeconomy, the revenue comes in 10 or 15 years in big scale. And that is very hard in the stock market world, where you have to provide for and defend the existing cash flow every quarter. So how does the management make the decision what to sacrifice? Because they have to eventually sacrifice something to create and allow for the new things to flourish.
As mentioned, the reality is that there are subsidies in bioenergy area. Mikael, what are the concrete market distortions that happen because of these subsidies?
Do I have 1 minute or 30 minutes?
Make it 3.
Yeah, we developed this competition triangle. And if you see the competition, there are 3 types of competition. One is between bioenergy and petrochemical energy systems, and there are high incentives to make bioenergy competitive to the petrochemical system. In the petrofuels, you have also high taxes. So this is a real nice situation for bioenergy, biofuels. If you compare the competition between petrochemical products on the one hand and bio-based products, you see the chemical industry pay no taxes worldwide for their crude oil, so it's without any taxes. And you have a complete unprotected competition between new bio-based products and old, of course, also to the petrochemical sector. That is not easy. And on the other hand, you compete on the same biomass with biofuels. And because of incentives, the biofuel sector can pay much more for the biomass, as you mentioned. Yeah? And so, on the one hand, you have high biomass prices from incentive-side biofuels, but you compete with petrochemical system without taxes, without any support. So that's really not easy to make your business working. And this problem is now seen in most of the regions in the world, but Europe is very slow to adapt. But again, in Europe, we're doing all the research, but the investment is going elsewhere. And now Brussels and many countries are more and more aware of the situation. And I think it's the right time to change the full picture, to give more chance also to bio-based products. And what you said is very true. You can also make nice profit on much smaller scale. So there are some new processes you need perhaps in volume by 20,000, 30,000 tons and not 500,000 tons to make profit. And so this is really a chance also for lower investment in the sector. And I'm pretty sure, especially because the incentives in the energy sector are decreasing since 2009, and the discussion in Brussels to stop all incentives in 2020, and so we all should be really prepared to take over the biomass in other sectors, because I fear that in 2020 many energy and biofuel depending companies will really start fast decreasing. And many of them are not aware of the situation, but it's a discussion. And if you're depending so much on incentives, this is a dangerous situation for your business. And in the chemical sector, you are not depending you're just depending on the level playing field.
Should there be subsidies? Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I would like to pick up on that one.
Please do.
Because I'm quite convinced that the bioeconomy would rather benefit from less policy instruments being put in the field, in our bioeconomy field.
So you don't want subsidies?
I don't want subsidies.
Okay.
If it,
you want?
If it cannot stand on its own, it is not going to be sustainable. Exactly as Mikael is saying. In the absolutely worst term, the subsidies, the directing policy instruments, directing the focus to a certain small sector, like bioenergy then, or biofuels, lead to the fact that the alternatives are developed somewhere else in the world, and Europe is losing a decade again to catch up. And this is the absolutely non-discussed drawback of policy instruments to try to justify a certain political target instead of looking at what is Mother Nature offering in the bioeconomy sector.
Risto, subsidies or not?
No subsidies.
Okay.
You get my point?
Yeah. I did not have subsidies with that one.
I have to build on that a little bit, because what I agree with what Mikael said, or Mikael, but I give you a concrete example. We are in the business of refining tall oil, and that is a byproduct of a pulp industry. It is a limited source of raw material supply. We only get tall oil in proportion to kraft pulp being produced in the world, and all that is being refined today by companies like us, by companies like Arizona, and several others, to a fairly high value-added products, as I mentioned. Bikini wax, by the way, is one that I have yet to see in practical applications, but I know it's being made. So.
Okay.
But the point is...
Next time we might have sort of an exhibition of
I'll let you handle
waxes,
it. I'll let you handle it. But the point I'm trying to make is that policy instruments in Finland now direct the use of tall oil into energy. And if it's a limited supply of that raw material, we will potentially be hurt, because there will be subsidized new limited markets with value added, which I think is reasonable, but there are better alternatives, and that distorts the competition. I'm happy to allow everybody to do anything they want with raw materials as long as the competition and the playing field is level. But if it's being subsidized to favor one industry, inevitably other industries will hurt.
Eric.
Yeah, also as a representative of the really small industry, this no subsidy team gets my vote, because basically the subsidies tend to be for existing players, large players, and in very capital-intensive areas. Whereas, I mean, we are a knowledge-intensive company, so we would like to see a level playing field where new ideas can flourish, and new ways of utilizing the biomass, which is what we are very much focusing on.
Startup without subsidies. Strange.
Yeah, we're funny that way. That we think that we should get our money from happy customers who get new ideas and new technologies, and then get the money there. And we're not there for the startup subsidies.
Okay.
I think there is one position where public funding is very much needed, and that is to demonstrate new technologies, to take it over the research results over the Death Valley to piloting demonstration. But the running business of a commercial plant should not be based on operating subsidies or incentives on the production volume that you are putting out from a commercial scale plant. But okay, then if you have to support new technology to be introduced, let it happen to the first 1, 2, maybe in some cases 3 plants to get the technology tested, to reduce the technology risk for the investors, but not a running production-based subsidy scheme.
Okay.
There's the one problem with subsidies, if you try to sort of help the companies in the beginning, that is starting with the misconception that the politicians who decide what is getting the subsidies, that they would actually know which areas to bet on and what technologies to support. And unfortunately, at least in my view, the knowledge of politicians regarding mass and energy balances and sort of economical viability calculations, it doesn't appear to be very strong always. So
in the 70s, the Finnish government decided we should have a state subsidized electronic industry here, and they decided to build this plant called Valco. Didn't go that well. Michael, go ahead.
I think the wood chemical industry could have a really good time in the next years because of the shale gas boom. If you have less petrochemical industry from crude oil, you are missing the aromatics, and the aromatics have a lot of price increases in the last years, and it's expected that they're still going higher and higher. And this is exactly what the wood chemistry industry can offer. And the situation in the US, it's interesting that the biopolymer PLA is meanwhile less expensive in production than polystyrol, coming from the aromatics. So I think the Finnish pine chemical industry and other industries have a better competition situation than ever if they have access to the feedstock. Yeah? This is an important point. Yeah. And another point I want to mention is that the customer also have more influence on the products than compared to fuels or energy, where you cannot really make the choice. But if you take Tarva shampoo, I like it a lot. I like to smell like a real man, not like apple, but like tar. That's very nice. So if you buy more of those traditional products here in Finland and Sweden, then also you can support the industry. There are xylitol is also made from wood. So I think there's also possible from the government to give more information how you can, with your consumer decision, support the local wood industry.
We're running out of time now. Before I ask you a last question, that what the politicians in Finland, Sweden, and EU should do, and then we'll give you the microphone in the audience. So come up with some hard questions. You have a couple of minutes time to think of a really good one. Go ahead.
In my mind, as we talked about the subsidies, I think the politicians and the government's main role is to ensure that businesses can thrive, both new and existing, and they should make sure that the playing field, meaning the business environment, is fair, level, and predictable.
Okay.
I can add on that, obviously, as you see, I have used the wrong shampoo, but I think it needs to be a more scientific and nature opportunity-based discussion than what kind of politically set targets should be met by political decisions. Because now there is, as Erik said in the beginning, there is much energy and money, or effort and money, put into fighting against the oxygen in biomass. To convert biomass to something where it actually, by nature, doesn't fit.
Ask him what he uses for shaving.
Tar, perhaps?
but for example, with the oxygen, if you look to the biopolymers, like PLA, they have exactly the situation that they have compared to polypropylene, for example, more oxygen compared to to carbon. So there are already some applications where you can use the oxygen in the product very well.
And that is a biodegradable polymer.
Yeah.
And that is another thing, another panel discussion regarding recyclable or biodegradable.
Yeah. Any more messages to politicians, or should we let the audience ask you questions? The audience, okay. How do you put this on? Is it? Okay, volunteers? There you go. Keep the mic close to your mouth, please. Volunteers, questions. I will keep you there as long as we have to wait. You're not going anywhere before you ask. And then we have wrestling matches, against those who don't ask. So, one question, please, at least.
Yeah.
Volunteer. There.
Save the situation. Esko Milani is my name.
Okay.
I have one question about nanocellulose. How do you see the role of nanocellulose in the future? Thank you.
I guess I'm obliged to answer that.
Please do.
There will be a number of interesting applications with nanocellulose and other cellulose particles and other fiber-based, not necessarily down to the nano, but the whole scale from 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters now. Look, we have to understand what are the unmet needs in the markets where we can add performance and new functionality by using whole or parts or nanoscale fragments of cellulose today. It is, as with many cases, very high initial expectations, then it gets calibrated to more realistic view, but things are happening, things are developing, and it's coming. It's maybe slower than wanted, but there will be a significant business. Nanocellulose you can divide in several segments, but let's not go into that discussion. But there is no commercial scale production of nano today. Micro is available, but not nano.
Mikael has something.
Yeah, I think I see still a big potential for nanocellulose, and I think sometimes incentives can help for a certain time, but I see also the importance of regulations. Today you have in many applications transparent plastic films, which make problems in recycling, for example. And if you would switch to nanocellulose films, in many cases you could just use them in the paper recycling. So for recycling, it would be much better in many applications to have nanocellulose there than petrochemicals. And so I hope that we will have in Europe also regulation on that we create a market pull for nanocellulose, because as a starting point, we need a little bit support until the volume is big enough to have lower prices.
There's one question over there.
My name is Anna Holmberg from Arizona Chemical. When I listen to the debate in Sweden and Finland, I hear very much a biomass focus on the debate, meaning that the countries have biomass, have the logistical systems in place, and so forth. When I go to Germany and Brussels and France, I hear much more of a value creation focus of the debate. So I'd like to be a bit provocative and say that I think that Finland and also Sweden are at risk of being the biomass supplier to the rest of Europe, who will take care of the value creation. So it was interesting to hear the view of the panelists on that statement.
Raw material from Finland. Is that the way it is?
Yeah, that emphasizes my point that a CTO is a valuable raw material that we can manufacture very high value-added products today.
CTO being the
crude tall oil.
Yeah.
And that value chain exists, and we have potentially new avenues to develop products. Once I mentioned antibiotics for a chicken raising feed, cholesterol-reducing agents. There are plenty others in the pipeline, but the investment climate has to be stable, and we can create those value-adding products in Finland, in Sweden, in our home country, rather than let the others enjoy the value. Thank you for that comment.
I think it's not a question about Nordics or EU. It's a global question. And I'm convinced that you will see that we are not going to only invest in Europe. We are not basing everything.
Is that a threat?
No.
Okay.
It's an opportunity.
Okay.
It can very well be technology, competence developed and derived and transferred from our existing, or our present assets that in the next phase are going somewhere totally different place. But there is one major shift in this. We are shifting away from engaging in discussions with partners only from a raw material perspective. And this is not going to be a short exercise. We have to be persistent to be able to do it, because many try to push us back to the raw material supplier corner every time we meet them. And then we have to crawl out and come to the right conclusions.
Mikael.
Yeah, I really see the risk, what Anna was asking, and you can see it already in the pulp and paper sector. Finland is much stronger in pipes than in paper, and so also the paper profits are done elsewhere.
Somewhere else, yeah.
And I think it's a very important thing to attract new investment to Finland and Sweden, for example, from the chemical industry, and this can be done with the right framework. Nobody was expecting that Malaysia and Thailand are the main investment countries about the economy, but they made the right policy to attract investment. And this is also possible in Finland or Sweden, that the value creation will be stronger here. And the aim in Brussels, now they're discussing to bring back production to Europe. We have some countries in Europe, like France, that have meanwhile only 10% of the turnover by production. And Germany has still 25, not too bad. I don't know the number from Finland, but I think it's about 20 or something like that. Yeah. And so the aim of Brussels is now that in average in Europe we come back to a share about 20% in production, and that means to attract investment in production. And so I think that's a very important point.
Eric.
One important point also to remember is that the value of biomass, it should be maximized. We can get it out in very many different forms and take it step by step. First have sawn timber and make pulp of the extra chips and get the tall oil out and sort of make a cascade where we get step by step the maximum value from each part. And I think, Finland is very much at the forefront there. We have long traditions in capturing the value of biomass. But in order to do that, we need to have very good sort of calculations and do sort of fact-based stuff, and not just dream about the utopia where everything is running on biomass. That won't happen.
Risto, then perhaps last question, if there are any. Are there no? Okay, one more question, answer for you, and then I have one final question for you guys.
I think we are falling into the same trap conceptually here. We talk about biomass industry and biomass because that's the raw material. We talk about forest industry because forest is the origin of the raw material. We should talk about the end products, the consumer products, and even our industry should be called renewable chemicals industry instead of some biomass or something. It was, I think, your ex-CEO, Jouko Karvinen, who had made a joke that why do we call this a forest industry? Because the car industry calls itself a car industry, not the steel plate industry.
Yeah.
So you should focus on the high value added products and consumer markets. And that is a whole different classification and thinking way than our traditional way of forest industry, energy industry, chemical industry division.
So you just need branding. Okay. One final question. We asked, is bio-based economy hype or real business? Now, election now, gentlemen. Is it hype or real business?
From the policy side, it's a hype. From the business side, it's real.
Definitely, we have real existing business, so there's no hype.
Eric.
Yeah, the question is exactly that. It's a question of definition. The business side defines it as a business, but what the politicians like to see as bio-based maybe a lot of hype.
Yeah, I will just follow Mikael. I have exactly the same opinion.
Thank you, gentlemen.